This 17 News at Noon podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Noon podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Good day and thanks for joining us here at noon. I'm Chris Burton. We begin today with an update on a young boy swept away by the Kern River. The Kern County Sheriff's Office has released the identity of the 9-year-old whose body was pulled from the river last Thursday. Jimmy Emil Reddick of Los Angeles went missing on April 2nd. Officials say he had been playing in the river with friends when he slipped, fell in the river, and was picked up by the current. The search for Reddick lasted more than 5 days. A KCSO air support unit spotted the body in the river after the rescue effort turned to a body recovery operation. And authorities have identified a teen shot to death in East Bakersfield. Bakersfield police found Jose Maldonado suffering from major injuries following reports of a shooting on April 1st. He died at the scene. Maldonado was just 15 years old. The suspected shooter remains at large. According to 17 News data, at least 7 people younger than 30 have been victims of homicide this year. 3, including Maldonado, were teenagers. And an investigation continues into a 2-alarm structure fire that erupted over the weekend at a vacant restaurant in Lamont. County firefighters were called to Casa Lopez on Panama Road near Main Street at about 9 a.m. yesterday. No word yet on what sparked the fire or whether anyone was inside when it happens. This is the same building that burned in December, leaving a man dead from smoke inhalation. And around the county, firefighters were called to a fire northeast of California City early this morning. Crews were called to a ranch on Aristotle Drive for a structure fire just before 1 a.m. At this time, it's not known what structures were involved, but about half an acre to an acre of brush and trees were reportedly on fire when crews arrived. No further information was available as of news time. And over the weekend, 2 people escaped a burning building in East Bakersfield. Emergency crews were called to the burning home at around 7:45 p.m. last Friday. Initial reports were that 2 elderly people were still inside.
The first engine arrived on scene and somebody was in the front yard. So they confirmed that one of the 2 people that was reported had made their way out. That engine company went into rescue mode, made entry into the structure.
Paramedics immediately tended to the victim, who suffered severe burns. He was taken to the hospital and his condition is still unknown. No word yet on the cause of that fire. And making news across the state, a San Jose Fire Department battalion chief says a Home Depot is, quote, pretty much a total loss. 5-alarm fire broke out Saturday. 100 firefighters worked for hours to put out the flames. Fire officials say the roof had collapsed on almost the entire structure. Luckily, no one was injured, and there's been no word on how the fire started. Meantime, a city near the Bay Area is trying to figure out what started a massive fire over the weekend and how much damage this city's pier sustained. Officials say the fire started around noon on Saturday at the base of silos surrounding vegetation. It grew and burned throughout the rest of the day and into yesterday morning. Firefighters were able to put it out by yesterday afternoon. A man is dead after a homicide in Oildale on Saturday. Sheriff's deputies were called to Wilson Avenue near Sanford Drive just before 9 on Saturday morning. When they arrived, they found a man suffering from what first responders call trauma to the body. That victim died at the scene. Witnesses at the scene later heard deputies calling to someone over a loudspeaker, urging them to get out of one of the homes on the street, but it's unclear if this was related to the homicide. KCSO officials confirming this morning that the investigation remains open and no suspect has been identified. If you know anything about this case, you're encouraged to call the Sheriff's Office. That number to call 861-3110. You can also stay anonymous and call the Kern Secret Witness line at 322-4040. Well, following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, estimates say more than 1,700 civilians have been killed in Ukraine. The actual number likely much worse, as Russian President Vladimir Putin puts a new war commander in charge. Bree Jackson in Washington with the latest.
7 weeks into the war, and Russia's attacks are entering a deadly new phase.
Ukraine won the battle for Kiev. Now another battle is coming, the battle for Donbass.
Officials fear the targeting of civilians will only get worse now that Vladimir Putin has put a new general in charge, one who's known for his brutal tactics.
He is the goon called in by Vladimir Putin to flatten cities like Aleppo in Syria. He is the worst of the worst.
Over the weekend, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson met with Ukraine's president in Kyiv and pledged more military and financial aid. Still, Zelensky wants Western nations to do more. The Biden administration vows to continue its support.
What we want to see is a free and independent Ukraine, a weakened and isolated Russia, and a stronger, more unified, more determined West.
The violence has already forced more than 10 million Ukrainians from their homes.
They don't have souls, I think, and they don't think that we are people.
Ukrainian officials say they remain open to peace talks.
If I have the chance to save a human life or a village, a town from destruction, I will take that chance.
But as Russian forces prepare for a fresh assault across the east, Ukrainians stand ready to defend their country.
Well, President Biden is set to speak with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi today as he pushes world leaders to take a harder line against Russia. India has taken a neutral stance on the war so far and continues to buy Russian energy supplies, despite pressure from NATO countries. The U.S. has reportedly considered some sanctions on India for its recent purchase of Russian air defense systems.
Hello, this is Tim Callahan with Clinica Sierra Vista, and we're excited to unveil the Community Health Center of the Future, our comprehensive care center. It's located right across the street from Memorial Hospital. We have every service under one roof, from family medicine, OBGYN care, dental services for adults and children, behavioral health, and much more. So find your way to better care at Clinica Sierra Vista this year at our Comprehensive Care Center. Visit our website, clinicasierravista.org, for the latest on this project. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back. In education news, a new report by the Kern County Superintendent of Schools office concludes there is substance to the allegations of possible fraud and mismanagement by the former president of the Fairfax School District Board of Trustees. The more than 50-page report combs through the allegations made against then board president, current board member Palmer Moland, providing details on policies and board rules that were broken by the board member who's faced backlash by the community he serves. 17's Christian Galeno has more.
More than 50 pages outline the finding of the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, a team that operates under KCSOS. The report finds that there is enough evidence of fraud within the Fairfax School District by Palmer Moland and for the district attorney to be called in. The report says Moland got the board to repay him for campaign signs. Moland got the Fairfax board to hire a law firm with the single goal of keeping secret a report very critical of Moland's style of running board meetings where he didn't permit discussion by board members with whom he disagreed and refused to allow public comment, saying Moland, quote, openly behaves as if the laws and regulations of the state do not apply to him. 17 News reached out to Moland, but instead he provided a statement saying, I have been a past employee dedicated to always focusing on the health and well-being of students and families in the community. I hope more positive light is shed on the situation as a response from the district is drafted.
Yeah, certainly.
I have no questions at the moment, but I'm sure I will have plenty for you very soon.
The report was presented by KCSOS to the Fairfax School Board Thursday night. Moland was present as he still is a board member. KCSOS provided a statement to 17 News saying it is not our position to advocate for a specific outcome to any of the agencies to whom our office reported the audit findings to. Our office will, of course, cooperate if any of these entities takes further action. Fairfax Superintendent Regina Green also provided a statement saying in part, it's an ongoing investigation. The board is still reviewing the report, and the report speaks for itself. Being that the board is only 5 members, we can only discuss this in public space.
17's Christian Galeno reporting the findings are going to be reviewed and discussed by board members on April 20th. In the event that it is determined that fraud, misappropriation of funds, or other illegal fiscal practices might have occurred in a district, Moland could face criminal charges. You can find a copy of the report on our website, kget.com. Some of you renters could get a bigger state tax refund next year. A bill introduced in Sacramento would increase the state renter's tax credit for the first time in more than 40 years. Single renters who earn under $44,000 a year would get a $500 tax credit. Couples and single filers with children making $87,000 or less would get $1,000 off their taxes. And what's more, the bill would make the tax cut refundable, meaning some would get even bigger refunds. The bill will be heard in a Senate committee later this month, so it still does have quite a ways to go before becoming law. And making headlines around the state, the governor and state lawmakers are now on spring break, and there is still no deal to send money to Californians they promised in response to rising gas prices.
For the legislature to say, no, we're going to continue to keep California's gas prices higher than any other state, and then we're going to go on vacation, I think that it shows just how out of touch people here are.
Assemblyman Kevin Kiley says he's not giving up his push to suspend the state's gas tax as the governor and legislature take off for spring break. And meanwhile, Democratic Assembly member Cotty Petrie Norris officially put her proposal in writing to give $400 to all Californians who pay income tax in the state. Other efforts include the proposal from legislative leaders to send payments based on income, and another is the governor's push to send up to $800 in debit cards to California car owners. And both of those proposals could be considered in state budget negotiations, which won't be finalized until the end of June. The governor will be back in office tomorrow. Lawmakers return next Monday, April 18th. Well, sports news now breaking this morning. The Los Angeles Lakers have fired head coach Frank Vogel after their season ended yesterday. Vogel led the Lakers to a championship in 2020 amid COVID disruptions in the regular season and playoffs. But the Lakers finished just 33-49 this season, missing the playoffs in a season they started with championship aspirations. Vogel exits with a 127-98 record in his 3 seasons with the Lakers.
The 17 News at Noon podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.